Okay, good afternoon everyone, welcome back. Hello to everyone who's watching online. My name is Carolyn Cadman and I'm Chief Exec of Cornwall Wildlife Trust, that awesome organisation. There is a wildlife trust wherever you're from, even in Devon, but also in the Isles of Scilly. There's one everywhere in the country. We have nationally around 850,000 members. We have apparently more nature reserves than there are branches of McDonald's, which is a statistic that certain people use quite a lot. And we work with over 40,000 volunteers every year. So there's one wildlife trust movement, but it's made up of lots of local wildlife trusts. And I'm from Cornwall Wildlife Trust. If we can move to the next slide, Toby, that would be great. Cornwall Wildlife Trust has been here since 1962, so we've been doing our thing for 60 whole years, which is amazing. It started with a group of naturalists in Truro at the Royal Cornwall Museum. They had a meeting and decided to create this wonderful charity that's still doing a lot of work now. Our overarching mission at the moment is to reverse the decline in nature. That's no mean feat. And this is what is in our pledge that we've put through to the team on the Local Nature Partnership. So what we're about is reversing the decline in nature, and we do that through two main ways. If you could click again, Toby, that would be great, thank you. So firstly, like many other organisations, we want at least 30% of our land, rivers and seas to be managed for nature recovery, and we're doing that in two ways. So firstly, we have 60 nature reserves around Cornwall that we're managing to be the best places for wildlife. And secondly, we do influencing work of other landowners and of people who work in the sea, fishers, and we influence them to take decisions that are better for wildlife as well. And I can see Patrick here from NFU, so we work with lots of his members too. The second way in which we will reverse the decline in nature is through working with people. So we want to see 1 in 4 people taking action for nature here in Cornwall and beyond. And 1 in 4 people is really important because the behavioural science shows that once 1 in 4 people are doing something, it becomes normal and more people start doing it. So we're working with our volunteers. We've been doing that for a long time. But over the next 3 years, we want to get many more people taking action for nature. So we'll be doing more wildlife campaigning work, giving recipes, if you like, for communities and individuals to go out and take action for nature, be that in their garden, in their school, or in many other places. And there's a new initiative called Next Door Nature being funded as part of the Queen's Jubilee celebration that you'll hear us talking about more over the coming year. So that's what we're about, that's what Cornwall Wildlife Trust is doing. But enough about Cornwall Wildlife Trust. I want and I need to introduce an awesome figure in Cornwall. This is a man who intimidates me every time I meet him with his knowledge of the Cornish language. I'm from Suffolk originally. I'm not from Cornwall, but I live and I bring my family up here. And in Suffolk, a hedgehog is traditionally known as a titi matorta. Thank you. But that's where my knowledge of local language stops. This man is trying to teach me and encourages me all the time to use the Cornish language in all that I do. And I'm getting there and I'm learning from him. But we can all learn from him. So come on, Will, come and give your presentation.
Marasway, Carolyn. Falakan ahoy, o Victorio. How are you doing, my lovelies? So blowing the bars up my headhugans on and hagal. How happy I am to be here today with one and all. I've got my own slides because I don't trust someone else to do me clicking for me. So I'm the artistic director of Golden Tree Productions. We do stuff that moves people. What's that got to do with nature recovery? Why am I here? As I said to Verian, why am I here? She said, we thought you'd wake everyone up after lunch. Well, you can get a children's entertainer to do that, girl. She said, you can come and be stroppy. Hey. So I stand by. I might get a little stroppy. I'm really here to tell you about our project, Cerdroia, but I can't go straight into it without a bit of stroppy first, all right? And I'm going to begin quite a few, I can't do the maths. I'm going to begin in 1984, when I was coming back home to Cornwall after going to uni, and I was lucky enough to encounter the wonderful Mr. Schumacher. Have I got some smiles and nods? Yeah. Small is beautiful. A study of economics as if people mattered. Now, you don't have to read the book, do you? Because it's on the cover. You understand what it's coming from. And it's plausible that Schumacher, were he to rewrite it today, R.I.P., he might say the study of economics as if people and the ecosystems within which they inhabit mattered. But in a sense, it already did the job. And I'm going to be saying a little bit about people as nature. In other words, I'll jump straight to the end. Very often we talk about nature as if it's a thing that happens over there, and we have to protect it and build fences around it and draw lines on maps and say that's nature. And we completely forget that we are blinking nature. Human beings, we're nature. So I did a degree in zoology, which I don't very often tell people about, for whatever reason. And I mostly work with chimpanzees, actually. And I had a love affair with a tiger. Yeah. But the human in the ecosystem has always been something that really interests me. And here's the second book from 1985-ish that I read, and I bet you aren't expecting this. Ngugi. Decolonising the Mind. This book was so profound because I realised that I didn't know about my own spectacles. Do you know what I mean by that? I didn't know the paradigm that I was seeing the world within. And what Schumacher said was, we're inventing a bunch of ideas, and the next generation is going to think with these ideas. Not think about these ideas, but think with these ideas. And what Ngugi said was, and to paraphrase Gandhi said, the greatest weapon in the armory of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. And so often, I still see us not realising that we're perpetuating colonial activity and colonial ways of being. And that the way I use the word colonial is about people as well as natural resources and the ecosystems within which we inhabit. Told you I was going to get strawberry. So, I've worked in education in one form or other ever since I came home. Well, that picture's a bit dim, but basically this is us out up at Colliford Lake with a crew of primary kids. And right from very early on when I was working in schools, one of my gurus was a guy called Dave Grunwald, and he was championing the importance of place. Now, I'm watching generation after generation of kids from Cornwall, and we're now beginning to see something slightly different, but for me it's baby steps. I'm watching them being taught that success involves going somewhere else. Because what you have to do to be successful is get a good job, probably in a city, probably a long way away. And actually, I realised that all those kids I've been teaching all these years, if we could have collaboratively been working in this place for the ecological and social good of this place, maybe we might have made more blinking impact. So it's in that context that I want, of course, to talk about my favourite place, Cornwall. Do you know, Cornwall's not special at all. It's exactly the same as everywhere else on the planet. Everywhere on the planet, we are facing ecological emergency and colonial activity, exploitation of people and place. So let's begin at the beginning. How far back should we go? How far back should we go? How about roughly 600 million years? When a load of fish were pooing in a place we now kind of call the Caribbean. And all the poo's gently sitting down to and then it comes hurtling across the Atlantic at a breakneck speed of about a quarter of an inch a century, crashes into Europe, and then up underneath all that mess comes this granite batholith. And of course, we always think about Cornish geology has been granitic, but probably in some ways more important than the granite itself is all the crunching, folding and cooking that occurred around the outside, because that's where all that incredible mineralisation and diversity occurred. And I am reliably told by Dr. Callum Beeson of Camborne School of Mines, Cornwall is the most diverse patch of the planet, geologically speaking. So we are the most geologically diverse. Now, that's going to start impacting on various things, isn't it? The first thing, obviously, to mention, and I'm in hallowed company with Carolyn, etc., is the way that the geological diversity of Cornwall underpins the biodiversity, because that's at the root of it all. But I said I was also going to talk about humans, so let's have a few humans intervening with geology. Here they are. So here's some humans engaging with a bit of geology, and we tend to think of all human intervention in geology as bad stuff. And we were hearing from Lucy about lithium this morning, trying to explore ways in which our intervention with geology is at least not evilly deleterious. However, here's my next favourite picture. And one of the reasons I love this picture is, are you able to recognise the location? This is Cranes. This is the archetypal sunset photo. This is the area of outstanding natural beauty. It's the one on the postcards. And yet, here we are, just a brief few generations ago. And it's gritty and it's grim and these people's lives were pretty rough. And so we're talking about the way that that geological diversity has created biological diversity and has also shaped the culture and the language and all the aspects of human activity. And of course, what we did about that, Cornwall got designated the landscape of Cornwall as a World Heritage Site, and in order to celebrate that, we built the largest mechanical puppet ever created in Britain, steamed the bugger the length of the landscape, and 150,000 people came out to see him. And we tried to really tell stories along the way. We found extraordinary stories of endeavour and resilience. And also, we celebrated the extraordinary stories of the diaspora. The bit we probably didn't engage with in any real depth was the fact that the Cornish people who went all around the world were complicit in ecological devastation, displacement of indigenous people, exactly the kind of colonialism that we're deploring. Hey, we did that all around the world, yahoo! Aren't we clever? And being honest and yet still, and not judging that, but being honest about it is part, for me, of what this is all about. So, I actually want to go a bit further back in terms of our relationship with our own metallurgy. So this is all about the Industrial Revolution, and Cornwall kick-started the Industrial Revolution and the Age of Steam and all that. But what about this little beauty? Familiar? The Nebrascoides! Take a brownie point. This is the oldest concrete representation of the cosmos in the world. It was dug up in northern Germany. Almost. Near enough. A couple of illegal treasure hunters. Why am I showing you it now? Actually, not just the tin, but even perhaps more critically, the gold. The gold didn't just come from Cornwall. It didn't just come from Coronet. It came from the stream in front of my house. Okay, so 4,000. Eh? Yeah. Well, if you want to see it today, you may go to the British Museum. It's in London right now, along with the Heartlands gold lunuli and some other artefacts from Cornwall. What's the relevance? Where is this guy taking us? What's this got to do with the price of fish? 4,000 years ago, we were winning tin from streams right across Cornwall, but in particular we're talking about Carnan and Carrick Roads now, and we were trading that tin and that gold across the whole of Europe. Right now there's a project called Project Ancient Tin, and it's basically, in a nutshell, by sampling ancient early Bronze Age artefacts from Portugal to Ireland to Scandinavia, to Austria, to Israel, what they're actually showing is Cornwall kick-started the whole blinking Bronze Age. You know, phew, Trevivick, huh. First ever wheeled locomotive, that's nothing, baby. So, this is profound stuff. And what I started, here, another difficult question. If you can get this one right, I nearly asked it in Cornish Love Day, but where is the earliest inscription in a Celtic language? Where is the earliest standing stone with an inscription in a Celtic language? No, it's not outside my house. So there's this whole body of work called Celtic from the West, which is full of profound implications for Cornwall. And if we had a university, they might pick it up. I'm just showing you this map because here, at the southern tip of what we now call Portugal, is the earliest Celtic language inscription. Why is that relevant? Because look where Cornwall is, my lovelies. That blue line is basically being shown to be the area where Proto-Celtic was the lingua franca of trade and exchange. Cornwall, at exactly the very middle of an international, outward-looking, I'm not saying they were all best mates, but we were trading and looking out internationally. Just imagine if you were a civilization that had an intimate relationship with the sea. Just imagine if you gained nourishment and sustenance from the sea. Just imagine you used the sea as your main highway of communication and transport. Wouldn't you want to live somewhere like this? Oh, we bloody do! You know, all I've done, darlings, is turn it through 90 degrees. All right? Look how close we are to Wales and Ireland and Brittany. And then Galicia. Cornwall has always been at the middle. Cornwall has always looked outwards. And you can stuff your remote and peripheral right up where the sun don't shine. But of course, this map is not the one you were shown in school or get to see on the weather every night, because we all know that this is the unit. The bit they don't like to tell you is, again, you can't read it because it's a bit dim, but this is about the westward encroachment of Anglo-Saxon and English, and we live in the unlabelled, featureless non-bit. As you know, history happened somewhere else. I know, you're going, I thought I was coming to a nature conference and he's banging on about archaeology and all sorts of stuff. So am I saying that we have a 4,000-year cultural continuity here now? Well, that ain't right, is it? Give me something that you've been doing for 4,000 years. How about language? Oh no, this is English. This is an imported language. It's only been here 1,000 years, 1,500. The indigenous language, you antavas ma. Hedma you antavas ein rag and le ma. So, 4,000 is all. I'm still waiting. 4,000 years. Who's going to give me one? Come on, Jeremy. You know what's coming next. Cornish hedges! We got there! Right. This is a Cornish hedge. No, it's not a dry stone wall. Nobody needs that explaining, do they? It's not a blinking hedgerow. It's a Cornish hedge. And the National Trust have been in under these grounders down in Zenner, and they have shown that these were put in place 4,000 years ago. That makes them the oldest structures on the planet still in use for their original function. They've been letting the cows out for 4,000 years. So, but the bit that really kind of gets me all excited and overexcited is that when I've been learning about Cornish hedging on this recent project of ours, is this incredible body of lore and vocabulary and language and how to do it and how not to do it. And my crikey, they like to tell you how not to do it. And this was never written down until within the last 30 odd years. Therefore, that knowledge is indigenous cultural knowledge that literally does date back 4,000 years. And I find that really spine-tinglingly exciting, even if it weren't the case that Cornish hedges are utterly wonderful for a bunch of other reasons too. So, I've mentioned early on about the geological diversity of Cornwall. And as you go around Cornwall, the style of hedge building responds to the microgeology of place. So you've got certain principles that are always the same, but you've got this wonderful aesthetic diversity. And of course, we've already said that that geological diversity leads to biological diversity. We are told Cornish hedges sustain over 600 flowering plant species, which themselves support more than 10,000 invertebrate species, including, of course, critical pollinators. The bit I like is they're not just corridors through space, allowing wildlife to travel twixt habitats, they're corridors through time. Because the rammed earth core of a Cornish hedge contains a pre-agricultural species array. So, I'm not being rude about farmers, I'm honest, my grandfather was a farmer. But if you do have a green monoculture desert, these hedges preserve a seed array of great diversity. So, hedges combine geology, they combine biology, and there's even the odd human. Look carefully, and you'll be able to see that these humans, not one of them is playing on the iPlayer. Not the what do you call those things? I don't know what they are. I'm so technophobic. What are they called? What are they? Yeah, iPad, iPhone, I don't know. Anyway, the point is, Cornish hedging gets you out in the landscape to do something that's physically hard work and will destroy your brain in its complexity of Rubik's Cubeness. Isn't that right, Jeremy? I'll tell you why I'm speaking to him in a minute. The Keepers of the Flame, the Guild of Cornish Hedgers, tell us this kind of statistic, that there are 30,000 miles of Cornish hedge across Cornwall, that they ought to be repaired in a cycle of about 200 miles a year, but actually they've been lost at 60 miles a year. That's probably slowing down now. People are becoming more aware. I was delighted to hear from Martin that there is an initiative happening within Cornwall Council for Cornish hedges finally to have some recognition, because at the moment they're not statutorily protected at all. And there's at least 25 miles of new hedge needed now, like, Carlin Cross and Chiv. And I don't mean getting in a digger, piling up a few rocks so it looks like Granny's rockery, and it'll last about 3 years before it falls down. We're talking about the real thing, aren't we, Guild of Cornish? Yes, we are, Patrick. Whew. So, you'll gather I'm a great fan of Cornish hedges. Let's go back I liked it 4,000. Did you like it 4,000 years ago? We all liked it. So let's go back once again to the megalithic period when there was an Atlantic arc culture that included all of the western coast of Europe. And what we liked to do back then is we liked to stick great lumps of stone, awfully encircled, very often, very clearly about aligning with solstice and marking the time of the calendar, much as the Nebra Skydus does. And of course, there's another 3 or 4,000 year old thing. Is that 3 or 4,000 years old? Okay, everyone know this one? Rocky Valley Labyrinth, just up near Tintagel. Eh? Oh, you're 3 slides ahead of me. The Rocky Valley Labyrinth, when it was first discovered under a load of ivy, they thought it was 3 or 4,000 years old. It was a Bronze Age symbol. Turns out it's completely not. It's soft slate, couldn't last that long. It's about 300 years old. Doesn't matter. Why not? Because just across the water in Galicia, what we now call northwestern Spain, here's one that is 4,000 years old. So we'll pinch that one. This symbol is found from what we now call Eastern Turkey, all the way through the Med, all up around the Atlantic, through Scandinavia. And if you wish to go to the Bolshoi Slavatsky Islands, north of the Arctic Circle in Russia, you might find it tricky in the next few weeks. There are 21 of these walkable labyrinths up there on those islands. So this symbol will have them. Let's build one. Let's talk to South West Lakes Trust and find a brownfield site, disused car park, middle of Bodmin Moor. That'll do nicely. So here's the plan of Cordroya, and as you'll see, we've superimposed the footprint of Cornwall on the labyrinth, and these are 12 different regional styles of building that approximate to the regions, to the sections of the area of outstanding natural beauty. I get told off. There's only one area, it's just there are 12 bits of it. Okay? Right. So, a couple of little things I just wanted to chuck into the general aren't we good at doing stuff as green as possible pot. In order to get enough stone to build these hedges, we realised that when the tide went out at Colliford, it's a reservoir, when the water level went down at Colliford, it exposed where all the old Cornish hedges used to grow across the valley, and of course they'd all dissolved away, and so there's a whole bunch of stone up there that is pre-selected by the old boys years ago, and it's good hedging stone. And South West Water said, you cannot take a diesel truck on the lake, so we did it the old way, and we did it by Hoss. Mostly we did it by human Egyptian slave labour. But that's how we reclaimed. The rest of the stone comes from a farm about 2 miles away, and we're going to have small quantities of stone that come from the 12 corners of Cornwall. We've, all the way through, it's been really important to engage schools, and through our Go Cornish programme, we've got a whole set of resources around Cornish hedge detectives. To date, 800 school children have done this module and have visited the site and have had the wisdom drilled into their brain here by Sean Williams of the Guild of Cornish Hedgers. But perhaps one of the bits I'm most proud of is the way that we have begun to address the issue of the bottleneck of people skilled in this trade to meet this huge demand. And so we tongue-in-cheek called it the Outdoor University of Cornish Hedging, and here are our first little tranche of these guys were all unemployed. One of them had previously worked as a chef in a fast food unit. 2 of these guys are now this season going to become fully fledged members of the Guild of Cornish Hedgers, including Zara, who will become only the second female member of the Guild of Cornish Hedgers. And at the back we've got Jeremy. And Jeremy has passed his 10-day intermediate. Where are we going next, mate? Going to do it? He's going to be a fully fledged Cornish hedger. That's his pledge. You heard that? Okay? He said it in public. So, that's me telling you about Cordroya. And what I have got some other information for you. It's just I will have to shoot you after I tell you. Do you promise not to tell anyone? We got the money. So, I literally just heard that we have all but the very last little sliver of funding in place to complete. So, she is going to exist. It will be there. Somebody said it's a really important new visitor destination, a really important new visitor attraction. I said it's a visitor detraction. If it were down to me, I would have built it in the middle of the moor and not told anyone where it was. You just stumble across it, you know. So, by all means, come up and find it. We reckon in about a year's time, we'll be ready to let you come and have a wander around. If you want to, you can come at full moon, dance naked, line up your chakras and orientate your vibrations. Whatever you want to do. I'm well up for it all. All of the endeavours that we've heard about today are attempting to address an extraordinary and possibly overwhelming set of issues that are thundering across the planet at us. And we've always known think global, act local. We've always known that was a good thing. We're hearing lots of really practical things. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it's just so empowering to hear a bunch of people do that. Personally, I'm so full of admiration for Ben, who appears to retain his energy and of holding the corrupt cabal of Tories up in London town to account. I've so got to the end of my patience with expecting little drops of goodies to come back down that A30 from London. And that's my sort of stroppy message is the leader isn't the person who's elected and sits in an office a long way away. We are the leaders because we get on and do the thing and other people follow. So, my little offering isn't as practical as many of the things that people have here said. It's much more fuzzy around the edges. Cultural intervention doesn't always seem the most obvious thing to do. And yet, look at the way you all responded when our young friends from Spladna gave us a poem. So, my plea is that people are nature too, that art and culture is a useful way of tackling it. And if you're going to put up a temporary structure, it's only 4,000 years. If you're going to put up a temporary structure, try and synthesize all of those issues that we're facing, be they ecological, in this particular case, geological, but the human component of that puzzle through farming, through fishing, is an absolutely critical part of what we're all trying to achieve. So on that little stroppy note, I'll shut up. Marastaway, Ragadaman, Hello. Thank you very much.